In the name of the triune God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen. The other day, my daughter was looking at images of Christmas lights online and came across a short video of a house that had all sorts of lights. There were lights outlining the roof and all the edges of the house, lights on bushes and trees, lights around the windows, lights illuminating the exterior walls of the house, and what I can only describe as horizontal walls of lights in the yard, flashing in neon colors, pointing the way to the house. This was a house that wanted to be noticed. This was a house whose owners felt the need to point to themselves, to send a message about themselves. It was probably something along the lines of, "Here we are, the house on the light tour that you don't want to miss." Maybe it was, "In this house, we do Christmas right." I'm not disparaging Christmas lights. I love a good light display, and we put lights up on our house every year, although not anywhere near to that extent. There's something festive about driving around after dark in December, looking at all the displays of lights and anticipating the upcoming holiday. We enjoy the build-up towards our Christmas celebrations. Most of us probably have our trees up and decorated, maybe even pull out other decorations to sit on shelves or mantles, have stockings hung. We may even be starting to see some gifts wrapped in pretty paper or tucked inside decorative bags appearing under our trees. I love getting ready for Christmas. I love decorating the house, thinking about the significance of the ornaments we hang on our trees. I love seeing the twinkle of the lights both inside and outside. I love watching the favorite movies we watch every year. I love trying to pick out the perfect gifts for the people I love, wrapping them in festive paper and ribbon, and putting them under the tree. There's a feeling of contentment, of peace, of joy that comes along with all these things for me. The world seems somehow brighter during December, more hopeful. Some would argue that now, more than ever, we need hope. In a year as scary and damaging to our bodies and psyches as this year has been, we need something to cling to, something to hope for, something to look forward to. For some of us, this Christmas this year doesn't even offer that, not the way we want it to come. Many people have elected not to travel this year. Families who look forward to large celebrations with 20 or 30 people gathered together are likely changing plans, trading large in-person celebrations this year for Zoom gatherings or other ways of connecting. Those who do choose to gather may be thinking about different protocols to keep people safe, or may just be hoping that their Christmas gathering doesn't become a super spreader event. Hope manifests itself in other ways at this time of year, too. Maybe we hope for a white Christmas, or for a particular gift, or for a resurrection of a beloved family tradition that held special meaning. Maybe we hope for an influx of kids in the congregation so we can have a big Christmas pageant like we remember when we were kids. This year, one of the most dearly hoped for things is a return to in-person worship. But I think that hope is not what John is calling us to in this gospel reading. He doesn't give us much to work with in constructing our hopes. If we were completely unfamiliar with the story of Jesus coming to the Gospel of John for the first time, what we would be hearing from John is not something to hope for. "I am not," he answers the priests and Levites. He takes the name God used in dealing with Moses, the name Jesus will later claim for himself, and turns it on its head. I am not the one you are seeking. I am not the Messiah, the eternal one, the promise for whom you have been hoping. He further destroys hope by saying that he is not the return of Elijah or the second coming of Moses. He is not a great prophet, as in days of old, the beloved tradition of the followers of God were hoping would be resurrected. Instead, John is telling us what to have faith in. We are to have faith in the one we do not know, the one who is coming after. Again, John is not giving us much to go on. If we were coming fresh to the Gospel of John with no concept of the Messiah, the Christ, we probably wouldn't know what to make of this. How do we prepare when we don't know what to prepare for? How do we have faith when we don't know what's coming? In her writing about this passage, Barbara Brown Taylor contrasts faith and hope. She writes, "Faith, by definition, is radical trust in what God is doing, even when the divine mode of operation is far from clear. Hope, on the other hand, can easily assume the dimensions of individual and corporate wants." Perhaps John doesn't want to get our hopes up. He doesn't want to build expectations. Because when the Messiah comes, if the packaging is not exactly what we're anticipating, we are bound to be disappointed in some way. Even if the coming of the Word made flesh is exactly what the world is crying out for. Hope brings with it the possibility of disappointment, of failure. When we get wrapped up in what we hope for, we can unknowingly assume that we know what we need from our community, from our world, from God. We somehow believe that our Christmas will be better if there is snow, or that our faith or our family will be stronger if we are able to have that Christmas pageant. When we allow our hopes to overtake our faith, we somehow think we know best how God should come to us. But John strips all that away with this gospel reading. All we are given is the bare minimum. Among you stands one whom you do not know, who is coming after me. No expectations are set. No words on whether the gift we are to receive is coming wrapped in pretty paper and ribbon or nestled in a decorative bag. No words on whether this year the promised one is coming as a babe in a manger or as a disruptor who will overturn our lives, sweeping away our expectations of comfort and joy, calling us instead to leave behind what we know and follow. What John provides for us is faith and an example. John is not the prophets of old returned to the people. He is not Moses or Elijah returned. Instead, he is the first apostle, sent by God to testify to the light. He knows that the Messiah is coming, and his role is to prepare the way. He believes deeply. His faith is strong enough that he doesn't need to defend himself in the face of the priests and scribes who come to question him. He doesn't need to define himself or defend his right to be at the Jordan baptizing people. This moment is not about him. It is about the one who comes after him, the mysterious one who we do not recognize. John's role is to step out of the way, to point to the Messiah and say, "Here is the promised one, the Messiah that you have been waiting for." I sometimes think that we experience two seasons every December. We experience the season of preparing for Christmas, and we experience the season of Advent. In the season of preparing for Christmas, we decorate our homes and buy gifts. We find ways to let our loved ones know they are in our thoughts. In pre-pandemic years, some of us might plan and prepare for large, multi-generational celebrations. This year, we're planning for ways to celebrate in our bubbles. And even in this year, when everything feels off, when everything feels strange, the season of preparing for Christmas is still a season of joy. It is still a season of hope. And hope is still a good thing. Advent is also a season of preparation. But during Advent, our preparations are wholly different and sometimes feel at odds with our preparations for Christmas. In Advent, we prepare for the coming of the Christ. We think about how we can give generously of what we have been given. We may fall into patterns of prayer and devotion that we don't follow at other times of the year. John sets an example for preparation for the coming of Christ. How do we get out of the way of ourselves and point to Christ? When we are asked about who we are, how do we say, Christ is the one who matters here? If we are asked about our giving, how do we say, all I know about love, I learned from Jesus? In this season of preparation for the coming of the promised one, John sets a clear example. We are to confess who we are not and point to the one who is. John is a reminder to us that faith is not a private matter, not just a matter of the relationship between me and my God. Rather, faith is a matter of the relationship between God, us, and the world around us. John reminds us that a public witness of our faith is not about what we do, but about who God is. Ideally, a public witness of our faith is not a statement about things we hope for, things that say more about us than they do about God, things that put our wants front and center without trusting God to know what is best. Ideally, a public witness of our faith is a statement of what we believe, that the promised one is coming. And when we compare our public witness of faith down to the hope of God's arrival, with no fancy wrappings or expectations of how or when God will arrive, that is something worth hoping for. Amen.